Oh, you made your own homebrew race. Well, it can't be that bad. There's nothing I love more than when players take initiative and they make up their own immune to everything god. The character is good at everything and can't die. Nothing kills them, and they're immune to everything. They can also do whatever they want, and can override what the DM says. Logan. Immune to everything god traits. Amazing at every single thing. Ultimate god and maker of the world. Eat it, Logan. You can't kill my character. By the way, Sarah is my girlfriend, so eat it, Logan. You shouldn't have killed my character. Okay, I changed my mind. Maybe not everyone should be allowed to make homebrew. My name is Jacob Crowe, and welcome to the Crow's Perch, where I tell tall tales of terrifying tabletop tribulations. Yeah, that's a good word. Anywho, in today's stories, a poster tells two tall tales of tabletop woe. In the first story, we find out what happens when a DM picks favorites, and yes, his favorite just so happens to be his girlfriend. So, without further ado, let's gather up a murder and dive right into this story. Had to make a second account because my DM knows my other Reddit. Sorry if this seems incoherent. I didn't think I would post this today, but I guess I just wanted to see if I was insane. All names used are fake, obviously. My DM, who we will call Mike, has been running Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition games on and off with us for a few years now. His girlfriend, Jenny, has recently started playing with us for this latest campaign we began around a half a year ago now. And though Mike has historically been a great DM, he just keeps bending the rules and generally focusing the campaign around Jenny's character to a ludicrous degree. For example, myself and a number of our party members have noticed for a long time that no matter how much damage we may collectively deal as a party, no boss has ever died until she hits them. This is also something that is applied to the last enemy of any particular combat encounter. We'll collectively barrage the last bandit with rogue sneak attacks, hails of arrows, paladin smites, and anything else we have. But after literally hundreds of points of damage, the thing that bandit dies to is Jenny's magic missile? I'm not usually one to get jealous over arbitrary kill counts in D&D, but some of us have actively started withholding our attacks to let her hit the last enemy. For them to miraculously die when Jenny hits them, despite them not having been targeted yet, and seemingly perfectly fine last turn. This is far from the most overt thing though. Whenever Jenny is disappointed with the damage a magic weapon does, or that she misses an attack with a weapon, Mike will retcon the stats of the weapon to do more damage, or have higher bonuses to hit, to an insane degree. I can buy that you forgot to put a damage bonus, or bonus to hit on a magic weapon you hand out. But when he's adding, no joke, as much as a 6d6 extra damage onto a magic crossbow, just to appease her when she's sad that she didn't one-shot an enemy, it gets absurd. Oh, that sword was supposed to be a +5. That actually hits. Or, oh my bad, this random soldier's actually weak to lightning damage. So, double that damage. And, oh, I forgot to add the second damage type. Add 4d12 fire damage onto that strike. Gets tiring very fast. Especially when it only happens for one character. Jenny is playing a full caster, yet she's better in martial combat than any of us martial characters because the random bonuses she keeps being miraculously given. Compounding the frustration is that we have spent the last several months only doing content related to Jenny's character's backstory, dealing exclusively with her family of wacky and zany characters, exclusively helping them while ignoring the main plot. Any attempts to get back on track quickly see Mike railroad us back into the realms of Jenny's past, so that she can once again be the star of the show. In all honesty, I'm beginning to feel like an NPC being played by a guest character, rather than a player at all. I'm not sure what to do at this point. I don't really know how to talk to Mike about this, and I don't want to hurt his feelings by pulling out of the campaign. But things have gotten so ridiculous that it feels like the only option. Am I crazy here? Or is this actually a problem? What do I even begin to do about this? Well, this OP did ask a question, so let's answer it. Of course you're not being crazy.
You're batshit insane!
Okay, memes aside. Your DM is clearly the problem, and he clearly has favoritism for his girlfriend. You mentioned she's a new player, and while I understand putting the training wheels on for new players, that shouldn't come at the expense of the rest of your party's fun. In my opinion, you have two choices. You can call it quits now if you truly think this won't change. As you've probably heard a billion times before, no D&D is better than bad D&D, and let no one chastise you for it. Or you could talk to the rest of the group and get them behind your back. Make sure you're all on the same page and talk to the DM together. You don't have to do this alone. And if you speak up together, he either shapes up or you quit. But in either case, don't sell yourself short, even if it used to be a fun game. Don't settle for less. Now, let's move on to the next story. In this next story, the poster talks about their first time running a Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition game. However, things take a dramatic turn when a group of experienced players decide to use the opportunity to take a joyride with the campaign. So, without further ado, let's keep the murder going as we dive into this second story. My last post got some traction, and I figured I've been involved with enough D&D over the years, so I'm gonna be sharing some other horror stories I've experienced. Brace yourselves, because this one is going to be quite long, as the context is fairly important. This happened several years ago now. As usual, all names used are obviously fake, but here is a quick rundown for names to remember. Myself, first DM in question. Mike, first-time D&D player, rogue. Isaac, another first-time D&D player and longtime friend, bloodhunter. Sarah, veteran player and forever DM, warlock. Zeke, veteran player and good friends with Sarah, lawful evil druid. I always had a love for writing stories, and really enjoyed the Dungeons & Dragons game Sarah hosted for us, all on a weekly basis. So I sat down and figured I'd run my first ever 5th edition campaign for my close group of friends. I spent several months writing out a heavily homebrewed world and story, as I didn't have much interest in running a module, and sent the invitations out whenever I had enough to go off of. The world I had envisioned was simple enough. I didn't know anything about structuring a campaign, so I decided I would simply build it as if it was a video game RPG, with a main, overarching plot for the players to follow, laced with various side quests that would grant additional gold and loot. Apologies for having to be vague to maintain relative anonymity, but the general driving force behind the campaign was that an unnatural event which had gripped the realm and driven many of the residents violent and insane. The only semblance of government trying to maintain order was the High Council, made up of ambassadors from various nations that had united to form one empire. This council was to be the vessel for the main quests to be delivered to the players. After a few sessions, things were going relatively well. Isaac and Mike were getting the hang of things, and since I started the game at level 3, it seemed that everyone was getting a good feel for their characters' combat abilities. During this time period, I was met with mostly good feedback, and the party seemed interested to work with the council, and so I set about cementing a few more details of the campaign. The party met with the council for the first time, under the excuse of delivering a letter they retrieved from a slain Imperial courier, and managed to convince the council to give them a quest. The party was to investigate what had happened to the alchemist guilds in the city that were searching for a cure to the madness, and they would be compensated very generously for their efforts. During this time, Zeke was incredibly adamant that this compensation include a short bow for whatever reason, and so a confused council member pledged to get it for him. In hindsight, I probably should have been suspicious about Zeke choosing to make a lawful evil character in what was supposed to be a good guy campaign, but I was too busy trying to be the cool DM that I didn't think to tell him no. I figured things were fine, as we were now several sessions into the game. Having completed their quest, the party returned to the council to find the guard dead, and the building taken over by some of the violently insane townspeople I briefly mentioned earlier. A few of the council members had died, leaving 6 out of the original 9, but the party was able to save the rest. This is where things take a turn for the worst. For no well-explained reason, Zeke and Sarah each have their characters kill another council member, smug tones in their voices. As they describe brutally executing the wounded NPCs, I had spent weeks perfecting the backstories and personalities of. This sent me into a bit of a panic, though I didn't say anything, as Zeke's druid demanded to know why they haven't been given their gold, and most importantly, for some reason, his shortbow upon the return, as they were promised. During this time, Sarah's warlock goaded Isaac's bloodhunter into joining in and eviscerating a third council member, leaving 3 remaining. The head of the council began stammering out their excuse that they were just attacked, and though they had the money, hadn't had time to procure the shortbow yet. But Zeke evidently decided he wasn't talking fast enough and had Isaac kill yet another member. The justification was evidently not good enough for Zeke, and so Zeke killed the head councilman as well. 1 left. At this point, I was audibly distraught. The almost year of planning and world building I made for my friends had vanished up in smoke, and I wasn't an experienced enough DM to know that I should have put a stop to things and demand justifications for these actions far sooner. Sarah convinced Mike, who had previously been sitting on the sidelines and was just as confused as I was, to begin violently interrogating the last remaining councilwoman. Unbeknownst to the party, this woman was actually a veteran adventurer and extremely powerful sorcerer, an important plot point in a later side quest. So, this prompted a relatively unbalanced fight for the now level 5 party, in which Mike's character ultimately died via a disintegration spell, and the last remaining councilwoman was able to escape. Defeated and incredibly upset, I chose to end the session there. Sarah and Zeke began laughing, saying that this was all part of being a DM, and that I should have known to prepare for every possibility, as you can never tell or plan for what a player is going to do. Mike was upset that his first ever D&D character had just died. Isaac regretted playing along, because he was coming to the realization that he acted out of character and betrayed his backstory, and Sarah and Zeke were smug as ever that they managed to work together and send my entire campaign plans up in smoke. Things ended up working out in the end. Nobody was kicked out of the game, though if this happened nowadays, I think I definitely would have given Zeke and Sarah the boot over this. I managed to salvage the game by producing alternative leads. Zeke suffered a harsh alignment shift to chaotic evil, and his character eventually found himself dead, as his further scheming got him killed by the rest of the party. The inability of a council to lead a cure effort led to Sarah's character succumbing and going mad down the line. And Mike sat down and made what is quite possibly my favorite player character I've ever had at one of my tables. Isaac doesn't have time for much D&D anymore, but he enjoyed the remainder of the campaign with a new character, and that's enough for me. The campaign continued for another 2 years after this, and I was repeatedly given good feedback by everyone present, including Sarah and Zeke, though I'd be lying if I said I wasn't upset about what had happened for a while. I'll never understand why veteran players feel the need to torment new DMs just trying their best. I absolutely could have handled things better though. If I had to fish for a positive here, this experience at least taught me where to draw the line in future campaigns. TLDR, veteran D&D players kill important plot NPCs I had planned my first campaign around, and almost ruined the fun for 2 first-time players just to spite me, and teach me some weird lesson about expecting the unexpected. A shame that this DM didn't just boot them out, considering how things went with Zeke's campaign, as mentioned in the comments of this post. But, as I've said in previous stories, I understand it can be tough for new DMs to make that kind of decision. Overall, I'm surprised the campaign was able to continue as it did, and I'm glad you learned something from the experience, even if it wasn't the lesson Zeke and Sarah wanted you to learn. Thank you to user Lilium Darkright for your stories, and I hope my viewers enjoyed them as well. And if you'd like to see more videos like this in the future, be sure to subscribe to the channel, and hit that like button on this video. And if you've made it to the end of the video, be sure to leave a comment about today's stories in the comment section down below. And before we end today, let's not forget this week's Art of the Week. Art of the Week! This week's Art of the Week by user the Mothman on the Crow's Perch Discord depicts the one and only Krotaro Kujo. The Mothman promises to make more of these delightful JoJo-themed characters, including one of the bear bard as Rohan Kashibe, of whose pronunciation I am fully aware I am butchering. Thank you to the Mothman for your submission, and I hope the truthers searching for you are put on a merry chase for many years to come. You too can submit your own art by sending it to the art channel on the Perch Discord. And speaking of the Discord, I'm announcing this month's art challenge. In honor of April's art event, I'm asking artists to give me their worst DMing advice and to put it into action. Maybe you draw the Crowe and one of your characters panicking in a dungeon. As the DM advice reads, DM tip number 15. Always put an explosive trap every 5 feet to assert dominance over your players. Good luck out there, artists. And I'm looking forward to seeing your worst DM advice put into action. And if you're an artist who's not on the Discord, what are you waiting for? Why don't you hop on in and post your submission? Submissions will last until the 19th of April, after which we will begin voting until the 26th, with the winner revealed by the end of the month. Once again, I'd like to thank my patrons for supporting the channel, like my burbs Novatonix, Shepdog, and Reuven Gritters. And coming up, the Counts of Quills, like Evix, King Drizil, Christian Pip, Cosmosis, Kooky Spooks, Rikus, Vincent, Mexican, Haley Thompson, Zero Fang, and Netscape Navigator. And you're tuning into KRUB, Crowe Upload Broadcast, Barons of Beaks, Kurestor, Jake Sine, AModestPastry, Jester King, Gintahl, Misfit, Gibber-Woods, Wormy, Matthew MulQueeny, Den of the Drake, McYeetly, and Anja. Well, what do we have here? These must be the Dukes of Feathers. I will introduce them one by one, like Jared Zemlin, Staniel Das Boot, Henna, General Constantine Chase, HappyRex, Stevie, Doc Salty 96, and of course, Acroth. Thank you to my patrons for supporting the channel. And if you want to support the channel yourself, feel free to become a patron on my Patreon for as little as $1 a month. Link in the description down below. And with all of that out of the way, I will see you next time as the crow flies.